When we examine the bond between super empaths and avoidants, the first thing that becomes clear is the invisible magnetism that seems to pull them together. It is not accidental, nor is it merely bad luck in relationships. The empath, with their heightened sensitivity, their deep capacity for emotional connection, and their almost sacred openness, unconsciously calls to the avoidant. And the avoidant, in turn, carries within them a hidden hunger for precisely what they fear most: intimacy, closeness, and vulnerability. What one embodies, the other suppresses. This polarity is not unlike the way light is drawn to shadow, each recognizing in the other something that completes a hidden equation of the psyche. The empath sees in the avoidant a challenge, a chance to awaken the dormant heart, while the avoidant sees in the empath both comfort and danger. Comfort in being cared for, danger in being exposed. The pull is powerful because it speaks to what each has not yet resolved within themselves. And so, what feels like fate is really the unconscious searching for its missing pieces. The question is, will we let that magnetism guide us blindly, or will we recognize it as a call to awaken? The dynamic between a super empath and an avoidant often reveals itself in a pattern of pursuit and retreat, a dance that feels endless and exhausting. The empath, wired for connection, naturally moves toward intimacy, seeking depth, honesty, and shared vulnerability. Yet the closer they draw, the more the avoidant feels threatened. To the avoidant, intimacy carries the weight of exposure, a loss of control, a fear of being consumed. And so, as the empath leans in, the avoidant instinctively steps back. This cycle creates tension that is both painful and strangely addictive. The empath believes that if they just give more, love harder, or understand better, the avoidant will finally feel safe enough to stay. Meanwhile, the avoidant clings to distance, believing that retreat is the only way to preserve their fragile sense of autonomy. Both become trapped in a loop where neither truly feels secure, yet neither is willing to fully let go. What we must see is that this cycle does not reflect love in its purest form. It reflects two unhealed wounds colliding. Until we recognize the pattern, we remain captive to it. Awareness, then, becomes the first step toward liberation. At a deeper level, the attraction between the super empath and the avoidant is not simply about personality differences. It is the unconscious reaching for its own reflection. Jung taught us that what we repress in ourselves does not vanish. It emerges in the outer world, often in the form of the people we draw close. For the empath, the hidden shadow is their difficulty in holding boundaries, their tendency to dissolve into the needs of others. For the avoidant, the shadow lies in the vulnerability they have buried, the tenderness they fear will be used against them. When these two meet, it is as if each is staring into a mirror of their own unacknowledged truth. The empath longs to awaken the avoidant's heart, not realizing that in doing so, they are confronting their own fear of abandonment. The avoidant resists intimacy, not realizing that the very connection they run from is the medicine their soul craves. In this way, the relationship becomes less about love and more about shadow, work disguised as romance. The question is not why they are drawn together, but whether they will have the courage to confront the parts of themselves that the mirror reveals. One of the most powerful illusions in the bond between a super empath and an avoidant is the belief that love alone can heal what is broken. The empath often enters the relationship with the silent conviction that their unconditional giving, their patience, and their depth of care will eventually soften the avoidant's defenses. They believe that if they love enough, the avoidant will finally feel safe, finally open, finally stay. But this hope, while noble in intention, becomes a trap. The avoidant may accept the empath's devotion, but rather than transform, they often retreat further into their shell, both craving and resisting the intimacy offered. The avoidant, too, feeds this cycle unconsciously. They draw validation from the empath's persistence, a sense of worth confirmed by being desired so deeply. Yet they withhold the very reciprocity that would create true balance. What develops is not healing, but a bond built on illusion, the dream of transformation that never comes. And so the empath is left drained, convinced they have failed, when in truth the failure lies in believing love can replace self-work. The reality is simple. No one can heal another's wounds by sacrificing their own. Every encounter between a super empath and an avoidant eventually brings both to a critical lesson: the necessity of boundaries and the integration of the self. The empath, with their natural tendency to give endlessly, is often forced to face the painful truth that love without limits becomes self-erasure. They discover that their compassion, while profound, loses its value when it consistently costs them their own well-being. The avoidant, on the other hand, is confronted with the emptiness that comes from perpetual distance. In pushing others away to preserve their independence, they come face with the loneliness that their defenses create. This dynamic, though painful, is not without purpose. It acts as a mirror, urging each individual to awaken to what they deny within themselves. The empath must learn that love requires boundaries to remain healthy, and the avoidant must learn that intimacy requires courage to endure vulnerability. In this way, the relationship becomes less about the other person and more about the inner work it demands. The truth is, growth often emerges from discomfort, and in these connections, the greatest gift is not the love exchanged, but the deeper self-awareness it forces into the light. The cycle between the super empath and the avoidant can feel inevitable, as though destiny has written it into the script of their lives. But in truth, the bond only continues as long as both remain unconscious of the pattern. Once awareness enters, a choice appears. The empath begins to see that their power lies not in saving or fixing, but in reclaiming their energy and setting boundaries that honor their own worth. And the avoidant, if they are willing, can recognize that running from intimacy only deepens the wound they most fear. Breaking the cycle is not about blame, it is about awakening. For the empath, it means no longer mistaking sacrifice for love. For the avoidant, it means no longer mistaking distance for safety. Only then can relationships move from the realm of wounded attraction into the possibility of true partnership, built on equality and mutual respect. This shift does not happen overnight. It demands courage, self-reflection, and above all, a willingness to stop repeating the past. But the reward is profound. To break the cycle is to step into freedom. The freedom to love without losing yourself, and to be loved without fear of being consumed.